You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
They made us sweat this one out, Jack. We went to overtime, but the Wolves take care of business. They make it 3 dubs in a row. 149-142. How about that shootout? That's your final in New Orleans. 13-8 now on the year, 5 games above 500. What's going on back in the lab? Back at it. Another T-Wolves postcast, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which thanks to you guys, now the #1 sports podcast network. That's Jack Borman, Wolves expert, NBA expert. Give him a follow on X at JRBorman13. Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. Of course, you got to follow our guy Ben Beacon as well, host of the Locked On Timberwolves show. Remember to like and subscribe, and you can find all the video on the Locked On Wolves YouTube channel, and of course all the audio wherever you find your podcast. Lots to get into from this one. Biggest turning point, biggest X factor, our game MVP, but always just like to start kind of big picture off the top. You know, Pelicans 3-18 coming in, plus down their entire starting front court, including obviously Zion Williamson. Not a good team right now. 1-16 against the West, 1-15 against teams above 500. Should be easy work for the Wolves, right? On paper anyways. Oh, God, no, Jack. Not for this Wolves team. But I will say, for a game that was meant to be a blowout, this thing ended up being wildly entertaining. Almost impossible not to have some fun and enjoy yourself watching this back and forth shootout. But why don't you take it just kind of maybe heading into overtime? We'll get into the biggest turning point and whatnot, but maybe start at overtime. Walk us through those final few minutes in overtime, and then obviously give us your big overall big picture kind of reaction just to kick things off.
Yeah, I think starting with overtime, I think the Wolves just kind of breathed a huge collective sigh of relief that they were able to just get the game to overtime and had kind of 5 minutes to recollect themselves. I think, anytime you get inside of 2 minutes to go and a game is within 1 or 2 possessions, I just think it doesn't really matter how much talent is on the floor on the other side. I think, anything can happen, right? Then, one random 3 could go on. I mean, look at Ant's 3 at the end of that Celtics game, right? Just a grenade that he throws up and goes in. So anything can happen. I think the Wolves just relaxed a lot more. And I got to give Julius Randle a lot of credit for what he did in overtime. I think that he kind of smelled blood in the water a little bit after Ant played the entire second half. That's not something obviously that he does, and he was exhausted most likely. And so I think for them to have a pretty well-rested Julius Randle who had 8 points in all of regulation, just to be able to play through him, have another guy who's one of the 3 or 4 best isolation players in the NBA this season in terms of points per direct isolation, is obviously a huge help to have beside Anthony Edwards in a moment like that. And so I think it was great for Julius to be able to rebound after what was a really porous first 4 quarters from him. But big picture, again, this is a Pelicans team that I think is better than the record. I came in, I did a podcast with one of my other buddies who covers the Wolves, Ryan Eichten, and asked for what my favorite 5 season over-unders was, and the Pelicans over was one of them, just because on paper this team has a lot of offensive firepower, and even down Jordan Poole, DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, Zion Williamson, and Yves Missi, they still have a lot of offensive talent, like you saw. I think, 2 super dynamic rookies in Jeremiah Fears, who's electric with the ball in his hands, and then Derek Queen, who's kind of like a cross of like Şengün and Jokic and DeMarcus Cousins. If those 3 somehow had a baby, it would kind of look something like Derek Queen, I think. And so just for them, they've had the hardest schedule in the NBA this season by far. Like, go look at their schedule. Check on positive residual. It's been the most difficult schedule in the league thus far. And I think for the Wolves, another energy was subpar for most of this game, right? I mean, the Pelicans had 75 points in the first 26 minutes of this game. And then the Wolves really kind of, clamped down, I guess, if you will, over the final, whatever it was, 27 minutes of the game, only allowed 67 points over the so the defense got better as the game went on. But I mean, if you really want to talk about just late game, right? I think that's big picture. It was nice to see the Wolves execute in the late game. I thought their defense the last 2 minutes of regulation and then into overtime was absolutely fantastic. I think they made the Pelicans really uncomfortable and made them work for everything that they had. And for Dante DiVincenzo, Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert to all make plays late defensively, I think that was super important. And then don't let my guy Finchie get hot at the end of games here, man. We saw Finchie saw that last possession was going nowhere, called a timeout, had a banger ATO to get Ant a bucket. And then Just were really disciplined on the defensive end of the floor on the final possession. Finch got Jalen Clark and Ant out there to have those two, and Dante DiVincenzo and Jaden McDaniels chasing guys around, Rudy Gobert walling up on Quinn. I think that was really well handled in terms of who was out there on the floor. So overall, nice to see the Wolves get a win. And what was, I thought it was really fun and too, because these teams had totally different approaches to this game, right? I think, the 3-point line, if you just want to look at the 3-point rate that these two teams had, about half the Timberwolves shots were from 3, 49%, and only 23% of the Pelican shots were from 3. That's about as big of a disparity as you're going to get in a game in today's NBA. It was great to see Dante and Ant each had at least 5 makes. Nas had 4, Jaden had 3, so that was great. And then for the Pelicans, they scored 70 points in the paint despite a guy no taller than 6'9" playing. That's the most the Wolves have allowed in a game this season. And then, also for the Pelicans too, they're second in terms of frequency of rim shots. So what percentage of their shots come at the rim? And that's with Zion only playing 5 games this year. So they took 40 shots at the rim tonight, I believe, by my last count. Yeah, they were 26 of 40 at the rim. And then they got out and ran on the break with having a smaller team. They started out 16-2 on the break, but it only ended 18-13. So the Wolves did a good job. It was 11-2 in the second half and overtime for the Wolves on the break. So nice to see them kind of beat the Pelicans at their own game and then crash the glass too and finish inside. Wolves had 10 offensive rebounds for 21 second chance points there, which was huge. So a lot to get through.
Crazy game. Yeah, let's get into our player of the game. Hand out some flowers from tonight here, Jack.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
It may get redundant when you got a player like Ant, right? But that doesn't mean it gets old, does it, Jack? Tonight's game MVP, let's hear it.
Yeah, employee number 5. That was just a special performance in the second half of this game. He had a career high, tying 30 points in the second half, and it sure felt that way. I mean, he was everything and anything the Timberwolves needed in this game in the second half. I think just for him, the way that they were able to, I think the way that Ant sensed the moment, right, and just kind of looked around and said, hey, this is a game where I'm probably going to have to do some of the heavy lifting myself. And I thought the way that I think he fed off of some of his teammates finding a rhythm and kind of the middle part of that third quarter was tremendous. And for Ant too, I mean, this is a game where he was getting doubled in the middle of the floor pretty heavily. And for him to be able to get off the ball early in the shot clock, trust that he'd get it back, and then be able to just get it done at all 3 levels of the floor, right? For Anthony Edwards in this game, 6 of 13 from 3, which is obviously great for Ant. But if you look at his shot chart, I mean, he gets it done at all 3 levels. He was 8 of 11 at the rim, which is great to see. He was 2 of 4 in that kind of short mid-range area. He made a corner 3, which was great to see off that Dante offensive rebound. And then again, his above the break, 5 of 10. So the fact that 21 of his 30 shots either came from 3, 25 of his 30 shots either came at the rim or from beyond the arc is an excellent shot mix. And so I think for Ant, that was great. And then you saw him play defense at the end of the game, right? I think the way that he kind of walled off Jose Alvarado, who's a really quick and kind of sneaky player, and the way that he can create contact and slither through the lane was fantastic. And had some really important help side rotations to defend shots at the rim as well down the stretch in the fourth quarter. So I think for Ant, having a superstar player like him is the ultimate trump card when you can create the type of tidal wave that can just wash out an opponent. And that's definitely what happened tonight.
Shout out to Jeff. Great stat here. This was Ant's 630-plus point game in a row. That ties Kevin Love for the most games in franchise history. Let's get into the biggest turning point here.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Again, real quick, I mean, so much to get into. I'm trying to fly through this, but Wolves up 6 after the first quarter. They say, let's let them have some fun too, I guess. They get mopped, 16 points in the second quarter by the Pelicans. So down 10, I guess, right, heading in the locker room. They erase 7 of those 10 heading into the fourth. Again, just a wild back and forth shootout, man. But take it from there. Was there like one moment, one sequence that really ended up feeling like kind of the difference as you were watching this one in real time?
Yeah, I do. And it probably is not the point where other people would think that it was. But for me, this came in a 6-0 run to cut it from 15-9 around the 8-minute mark of the third quarter. So the starters got outplayed by 5 in the first 4 minutes of that third quarter. Chris Finch calls a timeout, and Jaden and Nas each hit threes, 6-0 run. And there was someone in the corner, in that right corner behind where they shot the ball, that was talking crazy to those two guys, because they turned. I mean, for Jaden and Nas to both turn around and say something to a fan, knowing those two guys the way that I know those two guys, like, they are not going to address anything unless it's pretty out of pocket. So, I mean, if I were an NBA fan going to a Timberwolves game, those are probably the last two guys that I'd want to talk to, maybe besides Anthony Edwards, with the way that those two guys can, just fuel themselves off of that. And I thought that, Jaden McDaniels especially, Trey Murphy had 2 threes that, tried to extend the lead right back. And both of Jaden's threes that he hit in the middle part of that third quarter responded to those threes and kind of kept the Wolves offense chugging throughout a point where the Pelicans scored 9 possessions in a row. And so, and then again, I thought another really pivotal moment that kind of helped get Ant going was Dante DiVincenzo flew in over the top for an offensive rebound off an Ant missed 2 that Ant then relocates to the corner, knocks down a 3, and that kind of got him going. Ant scored 13 points straight at one point as part of a 19-point quarter. The Wolves scored 42 points in that third quarter. And so I think just the way that Ant kind of, sensed, all right, like, those 2 shots were in the game, like, give me the rock and let's go. And that, I think, just kind of shifted the energy. And then again, like we saw on Sunday against the Spurs, the Timberwolves had a great end of the third quarter and then just rolled that right over into the fourth quarter and kept that offensive rhythm going. So I think that was super important. And for the Timberwolves, again, I think finding something at the end of third quarters into the fourth quarter is super important and something I think they need to lean on going forward.
Oh, well said there. Plenty more deep dive. Biggest X factor in this one. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Monarch Money. Ever go check your bank account and go, where'd my money go? Dining out, online shopping, entertainment, so easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, not just another budgeting app. Complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, your spending. It's all in one place. You stop just managing your money. Instead, you start building some wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. You're getting 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA. You're getting half off your entire first year. This episode also brought to us by Prize Picks, without a doubt. Most fun I have playing daily fantasy, because you can win up to 25 times your money this NBA season. And why I love it, it's so easy to play. All you got to do, you select 2 or more players. You pick more or less on their projected stats. It could be points. It could be rebounds, assists, 3-pointers, you name it, they got it. Plus, they now offer Apple Pay, quick and easy deposits in your account all season long. Right now, go to prizepicks.com. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You're getting a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA at prizepicks.com/LOCKEDONNBA. 100% bonus match up to $100. Last but not least, this episode brought to us by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you gotta, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. They're changing the game by turning your rent into things you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you're in flexible points. Those points can be redeemed for hundreds of hotels, airlines, future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, you name it, they got it. Turn your rent into rewards. Start making points around your neighborhood. Go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the link so they know we sent you. All right, Jack. I know I got a couple quick hitters I want to fly through, but just real quick, let's hammer out the biggest X factor from today.
It's time to reveal who made the biggest under-the-radar impact with today's X Factor.
Biggest X factor tonight, Jack. It was a wild shootout, man. Who was the biggest X factor tonight? Who was it and why?
Yeah, I'm going to give kind of a dual X factor for kind of a role that 2 guys played tonight. It was Dante DiVincenzo and Naz Reid, their ability to shoot in the slot. I think, again, when Ant's playing in the middle of the floor in the 2-man game, in that pick and roll, defenses kind of know that they're not really guarding the roll man very often. And so Ant isn't really trying to split that double that he's seeing as often as maybe he was last year or the year before. And so he's done a better job of kind of drawing that second defender out and then making the simple pass one pass away. And a lot of times tonight that the guy in that spot was Dante DiVincenzo or Naz Reid. And this factor is a huge reason why Dante DiVincenzo is starting over Mike Conley as a shooter right next to right next to Ant that has a little bit more juice, a little bit more range from three. And so for Dante tonight, what was Dante tonight? He was 5 of 15 from three. Missed probably 2 or 3 wide open ones in the fourth quarter that you'd like to have back. But I just think having a kind of a pressure release valve there is super important. And then Naz also, I know he missed 4 of his last 5 threes. I don't think he might have made 1 in the second half, but it was 4 of 8 tonight. And so for those two guys to combine 9 of 23 from 3, that was awesome. And when they didn't shoot, I thought those guys made some really good extra passes. I think you could ask them to make those passes a little bit more quickly when they're not going to shoot. But Naz Reid had 3 assists in the third quarter alone. All of these passes were those kind of extra passes, and Naz had 6 assists tonight. And Jalen Clark was beneficiary of a couple of those feeds from Naz, and for him to knock down 2 more threes again tonight, that's something that we've seen now 2 times in the last 3 games, I believe, was super important. And then Dante, again, just huge defensive effort from him tonight. I think made several deflections that were important, had arguably the most important play of the game defensively with that steal that kind of made up for Ant having that push off on Jose Alvarado with just under 2 minutes to go. Had 3 stocks tonight, which was great, and had 3 defensive rebounds too, which was nice. So I think it was kind of a dual X factor for those two guys in the role that they played alongside Ant.
Yeah, can't go wrong either one there for sure. Speaking of Jalen Clark, just one quick hitter for you, just real quick. Anything stick out as far as Finch and his rotations he kind of deployed tonight? Felt like we got maybe some interesting looks, not just tonight, but maybe the last game or two. Jalen Clark, for example, first off the bench, not TJ Shannon. Just your kind of quick rapid fire thoughts on the rotations, and did anything stick out the most tonight?
Yeah, it was that Clark came in before Shannon, right? I think Chris Finch is going to keep flip-flopping here. I think he wanted to go Clark because New Orleans was playing smaller. They had all these guards and wings with Misi and Zion out tonight. And then yeah, Clark was a huge part of that run in the third quarter, bridging into the fourth quarter. He was a team high, I guess he was plus 11 and ended up plus 14. But yeah, that was huge for Jalen Clark to be able to come in there and be impactful in that zone that the Wolves are playing. Was nice. And again, if he can make corner threes at a respectable rate, like high 30s from the corners, he's going to play more minutes. He's going to play 15, 20 minutes like he did tonight. And then other notes, Ant and Rudy played the entire first quarter and then sat to start the second. So Chris Finch is kind of coming up with a trend here of sitting Rudy at the start of the second quarter. I get why he's trying to do it. I didn't necessarily like it if you're also going to play Rob Dillingham. I'd like to see Rob out there only with Rudy out there. So I'm fine with it if Rob's not out there, but if Rob's out there, I'd like Rudy to be out there. But then he went back to the Naz Rudy front court to start the fourth quarter, which I thought was important. And then, of course, Ant stayed out there to start the fourth quarter. And you can kind of tell how much Chris Finch really wants a game when Ant's rolling in the third quarter. Yeah. And he leaves Ant out there to start the fourth. And then Ant scored the first 6 points of the fourth quarter to help the Wolves offense kind of keep going. So, yeah, it was a really fun night, kind of from tracking all these different things that were going on.
This is what you'll be talking about.
All right, last one here. I know we got to roll. I feel like we could go, a multitude of ways on this one, what we'll be talking about tomorrow, Jack. But how about this? This isn't always the case in every sport, right? Like Justin Jefferson, a superstar. He can't throw himself the ball. We know that. Sorry, sensitive topic, I know right now. But in the NBA, Jack, sometimes if you got an absolute, just like a blue chip stud like Anthony Edwards, it sure can mask a lot of issues and cover up some of those holes, can it?
It sure can. And that's the beauty of it. I think, not only can it mask up a lot of things, but then it allows players who are maybe having a tough start to the game, kind of find their way in the wake of just the massive wake that a guy like that can throw. And so that's when you see Jaden McDaniels have 17 points on 10 shots. You have Rudy have 26 points and 13 rebounds. Can't believe we barely mentioned Rudy, but I just think when you have a guy that's able to score 44 points and completely take over a game like Ant did tonight, I think it just makes the game so much easier for those guys. And I think when they can just focus on playing their role and not have to play outside themselves, because Ant's able to cover so much of that up and extend himself in such a way that truly maybe 3 or 4 other guys in the NBA are even capable of doing is super special. And I think it's, again, you might see the Pelicans 3-18 coming into this game, and missing 5 guys. But I think, again, like nights like tonight are kind of remind you how much fun it can be to be an NBA fan when your favorite team has one of those guys. And it's no surprise that he's been one of the biggest playoff risers that we've seen in the last decade, really, with how he's able to elevate when he's able to really lock in on an opponent in the playoffs. So it's special to watch, and we're all really fortunate to be able to watch Anthony Edwards get after it every night, because he's one of those guys, and I think everybody sleeps easier at night knowing that he's in a Wolves jersey.
Can you imagine if they took LaMelo? Let's go back to the draft here.
Mr. President? The
president
said he wants to be president if he wasn't an NBA player.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I'm sure that was on the scouting report as well that year. Great stuff, man. Per usual, Jack just killed it as always. T-Wolves make us sweat it out in OT, but they do take down the Pels 149-142. That's your final. 13-8 now on the year, 5 games above 500, 3-game winning streak. Much love to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game, just on fire again tonight. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Go follow Jack, please, at Jared Borman 13. We'll catch you back here Thursday, 2 nights from now. Round 2, run it back. Pelicans, another 7 p.m. tip. Until then, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time. Signing out.